Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap up for January 15th, 2016, the WNW 222. And here's the way my little left wing leaning newspaper, the Greensboro News and Fish Wrap, actually News and Record, covered the speech that President Obama gave, the State of the Union and final address. Obama stretches optimism and hope. It couldn't have been any more partisan. I'll get to that in a minute, the reason why it was so partisan. State of the Union should have been renamed State of Delusion Address. Not State of the Union, State of Delusion. And there's nothing more delusional than this sentence that President said in his speech. Anyone claiming that America's economy is in decline is peddling fiction. If you say the America's economy is in decline, you're peddling fiction, even though we had the worst sell-off in history to open a week on the stock market in the S&P 500, and sell-off pushes stocks over the correction cliff. There are so many metrics I could use to tell you how bad and how damaged the economy is. I mean, labor participation rate, 94 million, at or near all-time highs. People on food stamps, at or near all-time highs. If you take a look at some of the other indices I've been telling you about, this is the Baltic Dry Index. This is the index of shipping raw materials. Down, just right there. If you take a look at rail traffic in the U.S., this is does this look familiar? Does this look boom? Does that look familiar? Rail traffic. You talk about the jobs that they have created. They're part-time jobs and they're low-paying jobs, and they're a lot less jobs than what they say they are creating. And the jobs they are creating are 29-hour-a-week. Thank you, Obamacare, for those jobs that pay minimum wage or $10 an hour or something like that. You can't buy a nice house. So you can't go buy a new $30,000 car. I mean, you just barely humping along. And here are some other, just headlines I grabbed. U.S. small caps plunged to 30-month lows into bear market. This is Royal Bank of Scotland, folks. Sell everything 2016 will be a cataclysmic year, warns RBS. They're talking how investors should be fearful. And then even though we get a rally here and there, here's the game plan by the big bank. Barris, J.P. Morgan says, sell stocks on any rally. So you'll see these little rallies, and the big bankers will sell into them. Thank you, Plunge Protection Team, for being the buyer of my stuff that might not be able to find a buyer for. Thank you very much. There's no daylight in the economy. There's nothing unless we invent some new invention, like the internet back in 1990, where everything, this big push in going on to the internet and internet companies and startups and dot-coms and all. We don't have that coming down the pipe. We have, after 7 years of money printing, we have oversupply, over-indebtedness. Things are in trouble. The economy is in trouble by any multitude of metrics you would like to use. And it's sinking in with the folks, with investment companies and big banks that, the economy is going to tank. The economy is spiraling downward. And there's nothing to pull it out, and there's nothing the Fed can do. And remember what Richard Fisher, the recently retired Dallas Fed president, said on CNBC and said, we front-loaded front-loaded the markets in 2008. And we created a wealth effect, and people relied on the Fed, and the Fed, and they got lazy. In other words, you get what you get. I've said this before. I couldn't believe that a former Fed president basically admitted to fraud and rigging the markets. And yes, the speech was delusional, but listen, Barack Obama is a smart guy. It was purposely delusional. It wasn't for the Republicans. It wasn't. It wasn't even for the middle. It wasn't for the independent voter. It was for Democrats. It was to try to hold delusional Democrats under the tent. Why? Remember that poll that came out? I don't know if you know this or not. There's a poll, legitimate polling company, said that 20% of Democrats would vote for Donald Trump. Oh, New Jersey's in play in the Electoral College. New York is in play in the Electoral College. Pennsylvania in play. all traditionally states that vote Democrat, all in play with Donald Trump. And then he makes some veiled, swipe at Donald Trump. Doesn't say his name, but this is why. This speech was not a State of the Union. It was state of delusion for Democrats. And it shows how worried the Democratic Party is, all the way to the top, to President Obama, who's the leader of the Democratic Party, how worried they are about what's going on with their voters. The smallest amount of people claiming to be Democrats is the smallest in a long time. Hillary Clinton is floundering on the campaign trail, which brings me to Hillary Clinton. But this, in just a second, but this speech was for Democrats. I saw some Democrats on the channel. Oh, it was excellently done. Oh, it's just wonderful. Delusional. And they're losing young people. Democrats are losing young people. Don't you think young people are tired of, well, you don't get any Social Security, you've been screwed, oh well, live in your mom's basement until you're 50. Don't you think young people are sick of that? Talk more about that in just a minute with Bernie Sanders, but I want to get to the next story. And actually, so there was two stories there, the delusional State of the Union and why it was delusional. And then also there is the Hillary Clinton, the FBI expanding probe into the Hillary Clinton email scandal. Now, you already know about the scandal about mishandling documents and having her own private server. And, what I've been talking about is gross negligence under the espionage. You had a private server. Nobody had a security clearance with the server. Nobody had a security clearance with the cloud. If that isn't, gross negligence under the Espionage Act, forget about obstruction of justice and lying to Congress, perjury, and mishandling state secrets, documents, confidential, top secret documents. Forget about all that. Now, Fox News breaks a story about how the FBI is expanding their probe into Hillary Clinton's email scandal while she was at the State Department, doing business at the State Department. Remember that book, Clinton Cash? He laid this out, 2013, 2014, Clinton Cash, about how she was working at the State Department, and if somebody was doing business at the State Department, and if they wanted and what the pattern that erupted over and over again is that if that companies or people or individuals wanted a positive outcome, that Hillary Clinton had a lot of power at the State Department, it just so happened that the people who made big contributions to the Clinton Foundation had much better outcomes than people who didn't. And the Clinton Cash book, the author said that was a pattern that happened over and over and over again. And now the FBI is looking into those kinds of allegations of bribes, impropriety, you name it. And, Bill Clinton could be involved. And I'm doubling down on this, folks. I think she gets charged. I said over a year ago she wouldn't be president. Then I started saying, listen, they hate each other. The Clintons, the Obamas, well documented in the book Blood Feud. Well documented. Hate. And I don't mean to be over dramatic. Hate is the word. They hate each other. And people are saying, oh, well, Hillary Clinton may, drop a big bomb on President Obama. Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, who knows what would go on behind the scenes? Would it be leaked over to Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton that, hey, listen, if you get nasty, we'll charge your daughter. She does work at the Clinton Foundation. We'll charge her. We'll drag her through the mud. We'll try to convict her, too. I don't know. But Hillary Clinton, I say, is going to be charged, especially that now they have a widening probe, 100 agents and working full-time on it, 50 working part-time on it. Now, think about this story now. So this is the story that Fox News breaks, a Democratic frontrunner for President of the United States, and they don't cover it. This wasn't covered in USA Today this week. A lot of the mainstream press just didn't cover it. Isn't that outrageous? If Donald Trump was involved in an FBI probe, a widening FBI probe that involved national security and bribing do you think that'd be on the front page of the New York Times? Do you think that'd be on the front page of USA Today? Do you think that would be splattered over every network, ABC, NBC, CBS, all of them? Do you think that'd be splattered all over all of them? Even Fox would cover that. That's the second part of the story. The mainstream press will kill their own business model, as in not reporting legitimate, huge news, to cover Democrats, because it doesn't fit their political narrative. I don't think Hillary Clinton can win anyway. I mean, Bernie Sanders is almost overtaken her in Iowa. He's kicking her tail in New Hampshire. She's in trouble. And Marco Rubio blurted this out during one of the debates that, the ultimate super PAC for Democrats is the mainstream media. And how can you deny that? Do I have to tell people at USA Today, hey, the Democratic frontrunner be involved in an expanding FBI probe? Where's that story in your newspaper? Do I have to tell them that's a story? That doesn't fit their political narrative. I mean, if it was a Republican, Donald Trump, hey, he's involved in an expanding FBI probe. Do you think they would be stumbling all over themselves to cover that? When news organizations don't report obvious, huge news, they cease being news organizations, in my humble opinion, and they become propaganda arms, in this case, for Democrats. Huge story. A, Hillary Clinton and the FBI probe expanding, broken by Fox. B, mainstream media, particularly places like USA Today, not covering it. Not a story to them. Huge story and a huge dereliction of journalistic duty, not covering it. You've heard by now that we had 10 U.S. sailors and 2 ships that were taken by Iranians, and of course, thank goodness they got home safely. We didn't start a war over, but things were dicey here. They didn't waste any time, making hay out of the propaganda. U.S. Sailors with on their knees with their hands over their head. They released this all over the world, and what they really wanted to do was release this all over the Middle East to show, hey, Saudi Arabia and Turkey, hey, your homeboys, America, they're not really much of your allies anymore. We got them on their knees on a ship, on their boats. Now, there's not a lot known about this. Ash Carter, Secretary of Defense, said it was a navigational mistake. Quote, navigational mistake, end quote. And also reported that they were 50 miles off course. Who knows why they were 50 miles off course. And this reports about how, one of the boats had one of the... No, that's not true. One of the engines were bad? Nope, not true. It did not happen. And why were they 50 miles off course? And were they spying? I find it hard to believe they'd send 2, 70, 80-foot boats to spy in broad daylight. Did the Iranians, do they pose some kind of technology that can, spoof GPS and make things go way off course? Or did they just go out in the middle of the Persian Gulf and snatch them? I don't know. They have an island out there in the middle of the Persian Gulf, and I'm sure there's 12 miles around it. They say are their waters, but they say they were 50 miles off course, and who knows, what will come to, how we'll ever get to the bottom of this. But, this is embarrassing for the United States Navy, United States military in general. Then you have, John Kerry. Oh, thank you very much. But behind the scenes, and this is according to Iranian news agencies, that they had their missiles locked on a U.S. carrier and had their missiles locked on French carriers, because right after this happened, they started maneuvering around this island, and they were ready to duke it out. According to the Iranians, that they warned that the war could have broke out if this escalated. So this is a country that the U.S. just signed, that has some kind of a bogus agreement. There's nothing signed. According to the Kerry State Department, there is no signed document. There's not going to be a signed document. So every time they bring up this deal, it's not a deal. There's no signed document. And I bet you the deal falls completely apart after they get their $100 billion, which is soon to come. And, add this to the list of ballistic missile tests and them, testing other missiles near, they didn't fire at, but near U.S. aircraft carrier going through the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf. Just to me, it sounds like as soon as they get their $100 or $150 billion, they're going to say, thanks, sucker, no more deal. It's befuddling. It's outrageous. And John, for anybody to even call this a deal when nothing is signed, nothing is going to be signed, is outrageous. And this is a country we're trying to cozy up to, and they're doing this to our sailors. And just to show you how dicey the entire situation is in the Middle East, now we have, Congress people saying that Saudi Arabia and Turkey are the biggest threats to world peace. What? You talk about a convoluted mess in the Middle East, and this is what I predicted back in the summer. I had Catherine Austin Fitts on, and I said that the nuclear deal, which is, and now we know is a total spoof, a farce, an undeal, is going to escalate tensions in the Middle East, and it's going to turbocharge the possibility of war, and that is exactly what's going on. There was another headline that got brought up that one news service was opining about how a war between Saudi Arabia and Iran could send oil prices to $250. I mean, right now it's $30, and it could be $250. I will tell you that things are looking bad in the economy. I'm going to have Nomi Prinz on. She's the best-selling author of this book, All the President's Bankers. And she is not optimistic about the economy in any way, shape, or form. She thinks at the very least that if we don't have war, Iran and Saudi Arabia will pump oil like crazy, and we could see oil go even lower. And what she's worried about are defaults and bankruptcies and how it affects the banks. You won't want to miss this interview. It's going to be an early Sunday release. Nomi Prinz, author and former big-time Wall Street banker, will be on Monday. Speaking of Wall Street banks, and I wanted to bring this up. So Bernie Sanders is giving Hillary Clinton a way to go. I mean, now he's basically closed the gap in Iowa. I think he's in the margin of error. He's kicking her tail up in New Hampshire. That's close to his home state, Vermont. I believe he's a senator from Vermont, socialist senator from Vermont. And listen, I don't believe in much of anything Bernie Sanders says because he's a socialist and he wants to give away free college and free this and free that. And how do you pay for that? But one thing that he is right on the money, and it's the Achilles heel for both Democrats and Republicans. You heard Carly Fiorina talk a little bit about this. But Hillary Clinton won't talk about it, and most of the Republicans won't talk about it. And that is the bankers that have run wild. Now, this is in USA Today. I'm surprised they put this in USA Today, but again, they're just covering the candidate. And here's the headline: Sanders continues to shine spotlight on Wall Street. There's Bernie Sanders. And let me read you a piece out of this story. In one of his fiercest speeches yet, Sanders last week ticked off a damning list of wrongdoings by Wall Street banks, which resulted in a total of $204 billion in fines, but not a single top executive going to jail. Add $209 billion because Goldman Sachs just paid $5 billion for mortgage irregularities. Mishandling mortgages is what way they say it. Although Bernie Sanders would call it something else. And the story goes on to say the list of misdeeds include currency rigging, fixing precious metals prices, widespread mortgage fraud, money laundering for drug cartels, and unlawful foreclosures. And Goldman Sachs just paid $5 billion to settle charges of improperly handling mortgages. I'm sure Bernie Sanders would call it mortgage fraud. This is the Achilles heel of both Democrats like Hillary Clinton, and most of all the other Republican field, including Donald Trump. This is the one thing Bernie Sanders is right on the money about. I don't agree with him anything else, but you cannot, you've heard me say this before, you cannot fix the economy until you fix the banks. He wants to break up the too big to fail banks, make them less powerful. And really, it makes all the sub-tier banks at a disadvantage to the big banks when they get all this money and all these bailouts and all this stuff. But you cannot fix the economy unless you fix the banks. And you wonder why young people are flocking towards him. I'm sure they like the free college and things like that, but it can't all be that. You can't tell young people, hey, yeah, you don't get anything. You can stay in your parents' basement. You don't get Social Security. Well, you don't get it. Oh, well, too bad. The banks got it. This is why he's resonating with young people. A 74-year-old guy has some of the youngest Democrats in the field flocking towards him. I say if that doesn't point out the fact that Hillary Clinton isn't damaged property, I don't know what is. And again, I'm doubling, tripling down. She's going to be charged. Not simply step down. She's going to be charged. I think President Obama is going to destroy her. I don't have any sources that say this is what I think. This is my analysis. And then I want to give you this little story as we're talking about bankers ripping people off. And this is in the my local paper where they had a big meeting, and they were Teamsters here. Retirees react to pension plan damage. This guy's doing this because he's acting like a bank robber, and he's holding his shirt up in front of his face, opining to the handler of these new rules that they just voted in Congress, that they can not only cut pension funds for future retirees, they can cut pensions for current retirees, and that's what's happening. That's according to a new law Congress passed, I think, back in 2014. That's right. Central states, this is Central States, these are truckers. Under a new federal law known as the Klein-Miller Multi-Employer Pension Plan Reform Act. Reform Act? You mean Cut Your Pension Act. It just says that a number of companies can cut future benefits for active workers. So they can cut them not only for future retirees, but for active workers, for active retirees. They can cut your pension. Some of these people's pension is going to be cut in half. And again, this is all due to the shenanigans on Wall Street and I'm talking about the Fed lowering interest rates to 0%, where they can't get a return, and they can't do an actuarial where they can pay out these benefits that people work for. And this is tens of thousands of retirees are going to have their pensions cut, likely under this act that Congress pushed through for the bankers, not for the truckers, not for the retirees, but for the bankers. Finally, I just wanted to come up with the Center for Medical Progress. They're being sued by Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is now suing the Center for Medical Progress. These are the folks that did the videos that they had all these medical doctors on that were high-ups, decision-makers in Planned Parenthood from around the country, basically catching them on camera making deals for buying and selling and harvesting baby body parts. Now, Planned Parenthood said that's not true. But they're suing them, but they're not suing them for libel. They're not suing them for slander. Now you think about that. The director said that Planned Parenthood said that the videos were heavily edited. I've seen that lie repeated over and over again. The entire video of each video that they edited down for time is on their YouTube channel. And they're saying they heavily edited. In other words, they edited so much they committed slander, libel. They changed the meaning of what the doctor said, that they weren't really selling baby body parts. They edited it so much it made it look like it. Listen, I've been in TV since the 70s. I'm sorry. I don't see that. Plus, the whole video, the edited portion is there, and the entire raw video appears to be on their YouTube channel. So Planned Parenthood is not suing for libel or slander. They are suing under the RICO Act, under trespassing, under privacy laws. They're suing for all kinds of things, but they're not suing on the basic allegations of the story. As a journalist, I say, wow, that, you want to be right. As a journalist, you want to be right. You don't want to get it wrong. If you have a big story, you want to pull that story if it becomes wrong. If you make a mistake, you want to make sure you don't put that out there. But they're not suing. They're suing under the RICO Act and certain clauses under the RICO Act. They're suing for things, like trespassing and for privacy laws and things like that. But they're not suing for libel or slander. Not doing it. Which I think this opens up Planned Parenthood wide open. As a matter of fact, the director of Center for Medical Progress says, bring it on. And they can depose these doctors. These are all medical doctors, not clerks. They can depose them about the what they claim is the illegal sale of baby body parts, harvesting and illegal sale of these parts. Just when the story was getting ready to die down, there's Planned Parenthood said, we're going to sue these people, which is really an end run around the First Amendment. First Amendment, very strong, very powerful. Where you can get somebody on the First Amendment is for saying something that's not true. The preeminent defense for libel and slander is the truth. And I don't know what will happen with this lawsuit. I don't know what court or what judge or how they're going to shop this thing, or they're going to get really uber liberal courts to rule in their favor. I don't know what Planned Parenthood's going to do. But I will tell you that it just opens them wide open all over again. That's the way I see it. I'm Greg Hunter. Thank you for supporting USA Watchdog with your comments. You guys are great with the comments and the links and the extra material that adds to the site. Thank you for your donations. Remember, fear not. Prepare yourself mentally, physically, and above all, spiritually. God the Father is in charge. Fear not.